This is the Scarcity Studios YouTube channel. Please don't forget to like, comment, share and subscribe. And our sponsors are Alpha Claims and Hire Birmingham, the leading and best accident management company. Get a replacement car anywhere in 1 hour. I really appreciate you joining me today, and this story comes from Shepherd's Bush in West London, and it involves one of the sons of Abu Hamza. Abu Hamza is currently in prison in America for terrorism offences and will never be released. His son, who was formerly known as Hamza Kamal and renamed himself to Tito Sheikh, has been in prison for money laundering offences in connection with money that was stolen from HSBC and its customers. The 35-year-old appeared at Southwark Crown Court in November and appeared in court today on the 11th of January to be sentenced to 45 months in prison in total. The investigation began when Metropolitan Police arrested him in a Cricklewood cafe on the 17th of December 2019. He had a bag that contained a number of bank cards, passports, driving licences and ID cards from individuals from the UK, France, Bulgaria and Italy. He also had £12,000 in cash along with 12 iPhones with various financial identities that he'd stolen. He also played a role in investment fraud where a victim was tricked into handing over €224,000 from an account that was controlled by Sheikh. After the Metropolitan Police froze the account, a photograph of the freezing order was found on his phone, and this linked him to the fraud. He also defrauded a cider manufacturer when invoices were altered to transfer £104,000 into the same account that was controlled by him. The money was then moved to a Chinese account the very next day, and Tyner from the Organised Crime Division said that Tito was perfectly willing to bank and move massive amounts of money, and the number of passports and IDs showed that he was a recipient of a lot of the money. He was an active and willing participant in the conspiracy, and he had the ability and means to create fake accounts and also launder money. They also said the guilty plea is due to the strength of the case against him. Tito was described in court as a career criminal, and he was currently on licence at the time of these offences for a 12-year prison term because he led a gang that kidnapped a man and tortured him over a £15,000 debt almost a decade ago. The victim was stabbed and battered with a metal bar and also a wooden cosh and nearly strangled to death. It was a brutal 3-day ordeal, and Tito was jailed for 2.5 years in 2009 for being part of the gang that stole 32 luxury cars worth around £1 million. His barrister said that he changed his name to distance himself from his father, and his father had a degree of notoriety, and he said this caused substantial difficulty for Tito and other members, and they changed their names as a result. His father Abu Hamza came to the UK in 1979 from Egypt, and he was given indefinite leave after marrying a British woman. Hamza had 1 son with his first wife, Valerie Traverso, and 5 with his second wife, Najat Mustafa. Najat still lives in a Victorian terrace in a quiet street in Shepherd's Bush, and this is where the family have been based since the 1990s. Tito was convicted of 1 count of conspiracy to disguise and transfer criminal property, 3 counts of conspiracy to disguise criminal property in 2019 and also the proceeds of crime, another 4 counts in connection to fraud. Abu Hamza has 6 sons and 4 of them have criminal convictions that include terrorism, bank robbery, armed robbery, drug dealing, fraud and burglary. Hamza's first son, Mohammed Kamal Mustafa, who is 40 years old, was 17 when he was accused of masterminding a bombing campaign to sabotage tourist and economic sites in Yemen. This was in August 1999. He spent 3 years in an Arab prison and then returned to London in 2002. He got a job on the London Underground but was fired when his colleagues discovered his identity. He then launched a rap career where he rapped about the Holy War and also carrying weapons. And it wasn't long before he was back behind bars in 2009 because he was part of a gang that stole luxury cars. Mustafa was jailed for 2 years for his part in a scam with his brother Tito, who was then called Hamza, and they are now inside for money laundering along with their stepbrother Masin Gallium. Another one of Abu's sons, Yasser Kamal, 31 years old, was jailed for 4 years after being arrested in a Park Royal West London hotel in 2019. They found very pure cocaine, MDMA and ketamine with a street value of £30,000. They also discovered an encrypted EncroChat phone. The drugs were very high purity, and it said that he had very close links to the source, and Kamal blamed his father for his arrest and extradition when he was 14 years old and said that was the reason he got into a life of crime. He was convicted for burglary and spent 12 months in prison when he was a teenager, when he was involved in a demonstration outside the Israeli embassy. He said he got into drug dealing because he ran out of money to pay the rent. And in a sad sequence of events as well, another son of Abu, Imran Kamal, 29 years old, was also part of a gang that raided a jewellery shop in Kings Lynn, Norfolk in 2012. They stole £70,000 worth of jewellery and also smashed the display cabinet and terrified staff. He denied any involvement in the robbery and also possessing a firearm, but was jailed for the gun offences and was also involved in a fight outside a London Park Lane club where a bouncer was stabbed to death. And continuing on as well, the son Sofyan Mustafa, 27 years old, became a jihadist. He was stripped of his British citizenship 3 years ago, and he was a former computer science student and travelled to Syria in 2013 when he was 19 years old. He said that he was fighting with the rebels against the Assad regime, and when he returned to the UK in 2018, he was flagged up on the terrorist watch list and was stopped from boarding a flight to the UK. He was from Turkey. And finally, Othman Mustafa Kamal, 33 years old. He followed in his father's footsteps, also became a hate preacher. He was recorded on video in 2012 calling for a holy war and also backed a suspected Al-Qaeda terrorist in a coincidence to a video that I did the other day about the Texas siege and the man from Blackburn that was involved in it. And he was calling for the release of Afia Siddiqui. And also Othman Mustafa Kamal, the son of Hamza, did exactly the same as well. She was a Pakistani neuroscientist who was jailed for 86 years in 2010 for trying to kill US soldiers that were interrogating her. And sadly, this seems to be a repetitive cycle. So in some research for this story, I thought it was interesting that HSBC were mentioned in another case, and this is due to the fact that they have facilitated hundreds of millions of pounds worth of money laundering through their accounts. The Financial Conduct Authority actually fined HSBC £63 million for unacceptable failings in relation to anti-money laundering systems. They have laundered millions and billions for Mexican cartels, and in the most recent case in 2018, it was believed that hundreds of millions of pounds was laundered through the actual bank, and the security measures that should have been in place were not. And this shows that this is still going on even today. Banks like HSBC and NatWest are still receiving record-breaking fines for money laundering, and this makes you wonder if some of these banks are involved in some of this as well. And of course they benefit very highly. Even when they pay off a large fine from the Financial Conduct Authority, they still probably make a profit from the amount of money that was laundered for the last 8 years. So I thought this was a really interesting story, and I really want to hear what people have to say. Please don't forget to like, comment, share and subscribe, and follow me online as well at Scarcity Studios on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok and Facebook. And I'll be back again very shortly with some more news. Peace.